are in the season of Lent, the lead up to Easter. And this Lent, as a church, we are tracking with a resource from the LICC, the London Institute of Contemporary Christianity. And it's called Lent on Purpose. And the idea is that that first Easter makes such a dramatic difference to our lives that everything, every area of our life is different. And so they are saying there is a deeper level of meaning, which they call purpose. So it means that life isn't random and meaningless, but there is things that God has and a difference he has made in all areas of our life. And so each week it's looking at a different area of our life. And this week it is friendship. So today we're going to think about what friendship is, and I am here with man's best friend. Now, what makes her man's best friend? Is it the terrible breath? Is it her obsession with food? Is it that I follow her around and pick up her poo? Now, it could be those things, but I suspect it's not. So I want to start by pausing and you guys having an opportunity to have a little discussion about how do we define friendship? What does it mean to be a friend? So friend is a really broad word that's used differently for different contexts and has been somewhat co-opted by social media. But I think a good working definition for friends is a relationship that brings you joy and a relationship where you want the good for the other person, and this is mutual, so it's going on both ways. And friendship is a crucial part of what it is to be a human being, something that God has put inside us. And there are numerous studies, scientific studies, that have shown the benefit of friendship, even to the point that people with friends live longer. So it is crucial to our flourishing as human beings. So today I want to look at two aspects of this broad category of friendships. I want to look at two things about it. I want to look at friends on purpose and friends with purpose. So firstly, friends on purpose. A few times when we've leading the church, people have come and talked to us and they said, oh, I kind of like the church, but I haven't got friends. You know, I thought I'd get friends. And there's this kind of assumption that somehow they are going to be assigned some friends, you know, that they would join a church and they would assign, here are your friends. And it got me thinking about how that happens, why it happens, and why it might not happen. And I think there is a process to becoming friends with someone that happens so naturally at different stages of our life that it's almost invisible. So we don't realize there is something where we need to have a level of purposeful intention for friendships to happen. So if you think about your life and the places where you've had friends, very often that's at school, university, the first job. And the thing that you have in common in all those environments is circumstances require that you are spending a lot of time with the same people, whether that's in lessons, in accommodations, in an office. You are spending a lot of time with people. And it is that time which develops the friendship. And you see the converse is true. Maybe you've had a job or you've been with someone at university and you've thought, I've got such a good friendship with this person. I really like them, get on really well. I'm sure we'll be friends forever. And then you move, you change job or something. Circumstances mean you don't see them so often. And a few years later, you look back and you still have fond feelings for them. You haven't fallen out, but in reality, you are not that same level of friends anymore. So time spent together is a crucial ingredient of being friends. In the Bible, in 1 Peter 4, 8 and 9, it says this: love each other deeply because love covers a multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one another. I'm kind of taking the verse out of context, but I think this idea of being hospitable with our lives, opening our lives up to other people, is a really important thing. Because as life goes on, those circumstances that mean we spend time with other people become rarer and rarer. We end up moving into our own house. We get busy with our own things and our own family. As we move on in our career, we will find ourselves with less peers. Either we're in charge of people or we're working on our own. So all these places where we would have been forced by circumstances to spend time with people become rarer and rarer. So to develop good, deep friendships, we need to be intentional, to be purposeful about how we spend our time and to prioritize those occasions when we get to spend time with other people. So that might mean not spreading ourselves too thin among too many people, slightly thinking about our priorities in that. It might mean compromise. It might mean doing things that we wouldn't normally choose to do because it means that we get to spend time with someone else. It might be saying yes to invitations when we've got into the habit of saying no, where we think we are too tired or too busy. It might be making those adjustments. So a question and a challenge for this point. How are you spending your time around other people? Is there any level of thought, any level of intention or purpose or prioritization going on about how you spend your time with people? And is God not nudging you about certain people, about saying yes to an invitation or about extending an invitation? My second point I want to make is friends with purpose. When we read the creation story, God creates Adam, and Adam is created with an image, in the image of God, and with a purpose. The purpose is to go and steward creation. But God says it is not good for him to do it alone. There's this idea that we are made in our identity to be connected, just as God is three people in one, but in our purpose to be connected, we are given stuff to do alongside others. And it says in Hebrews 10:24-25, let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another. Again, this verse is usually used for those kind of formal, organized church meetings, but I do think it is true and possibly what the writer meant is this idea of how do we meet with one another, how do we spend time to one another to encourage one another towards a purpose that God has in our life. This purpose of doing good things, of seeing his kingdom come into the world around us. And actually, I think this is a way that friendship develops to the next level, when we move beyond just our relationships, but working together to do something that God has laid on our heart. It's this idea of setting out to achieve something that is just beyond what we would manage on our own, but with the support, encouragement, and companionship of a friend or friends, we are able to do it. Maybe it's still something that's beyond us, but it's that ability then to step into that place where we need God's help to do what we think he is calling us to do. So I've seen this a number of times when I've done short-term mission trips, which I'm sure some of you will be able to relate to. This idea of doing things that feels scary and uncomfortable, we wouldn't necessarily want to do, but we know it's a good thing, but because it's a team doing it together, because it's a group, it's possible, but in doing it, the friendships develop. So one example I can think of many years ago was a group of us went to Albania, and part of this trip, visiting a church over there, was to go into a Albanian men's prison to share our stories of what God has done and to pray for the inmates. And it was terrifying. I remember we were all scared about it, but there was this collective momentum that meant none of us could say, well, actually, I don't want to do it. So we're on this minibus, we're going there, tensions are really high. I just remember how much we were laughing. You know, there was this sense of collective camaraderie that was with us that just meant it was incredible fun. And there was a depth of connection that happened because we were about to do something really scary together. I think maybe that's what God designed church to be like. I think maybe in the early church, the first 300 years of the church history, in places where the church is really growing now, like Iran and Afghanistan, I wonder if that's the same, this feeling of like we are called to do something that is slightly beyond us, that's slightly scary, but we are doing it together, we are supporting and encouraging one another, we're spurring one another on, and that is deepening, developing, maturing our friendships as we do it. That is what I would love our church to be like, to feel like together we're doing something remarkable, changing the world, changing the city, changing the circumstances around us, and doing it together and getting to know one another. I think really naturally that's the dream for hubs, that hubs don't just become a sort of chosen extended family or a community where we get to know one another and we study the Bible and we learn information, but it's a place where we start to dream together and support the prompts that people feel God has given them to do something to bring God's kingdom to the world around us. And by choosing to do it on purpose, to be intentional, to support one another, to connect and do this thing together, we'll also deepen our relationships through the thing that we're doing, but just having fun and sharing those experiences as we do it together. So a question and a challenge for this point. Is there something where you feel you have a nudge from God, a prompt from him to do something in the world about you, to do some way to bring a bit of God's kingdom into a situation around you? And maybe you've just sat on it and done nothing about it, but is there something about friendship? Is there a way of inviting other people into that might make it possible, that might get you started, that might give some momentum to those things? Is there a way that you could talk to some people about this idea you have, this vision, and see whether it's something that they will share? Or conversely, maybe someone else has said that to you and you've thought, well, I'm too busy and I can't be bothered and it seems a bit scary, but maybe in this context of thinking, well, actually this is part of the purposeful relationships I'm building, that idea, which is a good idea but didn't capture my imagination, but actually for the sake of this person, I think it would be a great thing to do for the sake of our relationship. So I'm going to pray and then you can have a bit of discussion around those two challenges and questions that I gave for each point. So Father, we want to learn how to be friends on purpose, to learn how to recognize where you are calling us into relationships, how we can learn to be good friends, how we can learn to deepen our friendships. Help us just assess our lives and be intentional with this commodity we have of time, with this ability to open up our lives to other people. Pray that we'd have your insights to that. And then also, Lord, help us find purpose within the friendships of what is it you might be calling us to do with people around us to bring your kingdom. Maybe just with some friends, but maybe as a hub as well, Lord. What opportunities are there for us to work with you, to bring your kingdom, to make the world a better place, to bring your blessings to other people? In Jesus' name, amen.